There you go.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. I was about to say good morning. Welcome to District 57 Spring Conference Education Session, Stories at Work. Yeah. In this workshop, you will learn why stories are powerful, why stories are a powerful communication tool in professional settings, who can be storytellers at work, what are the best stories at work, where and when can you use storytelling at work, and how you can prepare for using stories at work. Let's see. Okay, this morning. My name is Kat King. I will serve as your room monitor here in the Shasta room. Jeffrey Young will be our Zoom room monitor. We are asking everyone on Zoom to mute themselves during the session. If you have any questions or comments on Zoom, please place them in the Zoom chat. Jeff will be monitoring that chat during the session. And Brendan will be taking those questions intermittently. Here in the room, if you have not yet received a handout, that probably means we ran out. But if you don't have one, please let us know and we'll make sure that you can get one. We still have some left over. After the session, please provide us with your name and email address so we can send you an electronic copy. For those of you on Zoom, Jeff will now place a PDF version of the handout in the Zoom chat for you to download. You got it?
Yep, already in.
All right, perfect. It is now my honor to introduce our two session leaders. Dennis Dawson has been a Toastmaster since 2005. He is a past D57 governor. Dennis is also a past evaluation, humorist, and tall tales champion. Not only has he achieved the highest educational achievement in our organization, the Distinguished Toastmaster Award, he has done it twice. When not doing Toastmasters, Dennis serves as staff technical writer at Ripple. Okay.
All right, thank you, thank you, thank you all of you. Please introduce the next speaker.
Brandon James Murphy.
Yeah.
Joined Toastmasters in 1997, so you were about 5?
Yeah, absolutely.
Little callback to our evaluation content. He is the president of the Tales and Tellers Toastmasters Storytelling Club. In 2011, he was honored as the District 57 Toastmaster of the Year. He is a past table topics and humor speech champion. He is also a DTN. At work, he serves as an agile program manager with the tech department at Stanford Medicine. Yeah, amazing. What else do I have to say? Okay, now we can welcome Dennis Dawson and Brendan James Murphy with today's presentation on stories at work.
Thank you all, fantastic. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters, honored Toastmasters, welcome guests, and my co-presenter, Dennis Dawson. I am excited to start this off with a story. Once upon a time, I foolishly allowed myself to join the Forest Service as a firefighter. There was one problem. I was from a nice, soft suburb of Palo Alto, where your summers were spent in air-conditioned malls and air-conditioned movie theaters. And my fellow firefighters recognized this right along, and they called me a flatlander. Ooh, the worst thing you can say about anybody up in the Sierra Nevadas. I was a flatlander. And they made fun of me and teased me again and again. One time, they said, Brendan, get the wet water. And I was like, yeah, wet water, right? Yeah. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And they said, no. We need the wet water. I was like, wet water? Water's always wet. And they go, you idiot flatlander. Wet water has detergent in it that makes the water more permeable into the hot logs that are burning. It helps extinguish the fire. It amplifies the power of water because it makes it wet water. Stories are of a similar nature. They're like that wet water. They help you permeate the audience and get your point across. They're extremely powerful for you to achieve your goals and make your opportunities happen.
So, once upon your time, think of something happening at the office, at home, something in the church, something at school, an issue or an opportunity, a chance for you to make a difference. Jot these down while you listen to us talk, anything that jogs your mind, because we're going to come back to it later, and we're going to look for ways that you can use stories to address those issues and opportunities as they arise. What do you think of that, Brendan?
Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Yeah, so Dennis and I are passionate about stories, not just because they entertain, but because they can enlighten in powerful ways. But why are they able to do that, Mr. Dawson?
Well, storytelling is leadership. This is something we know because NVIDIA founder and CEO Jensen Huang spoke at a Toastmasters Story Club 3 years ago, and he said so. There.
We also know why this works is because of research. In a recent study of graduate business students at Stanford, they found that they gave these people an opportunity to give a sales pitch. Now, most choose just to cite stats, but a few said, hey, I'm gonna add a story to it. 10 minutes, only 10 minutes after those pitches were concluded, only 5% of the audience could quote a stat accurately, but 63% could tell a story that was told to them.
In his book, Team of Teams, General Stanley McChrystal explains how story ties together what you're doing, and the acts as a most effective heuristic for leading a team and helping the process of decision-making. Yes, I do know what a heuristic is.
Yes, thank you very much, Brandon.
Yeah, he's gonna ask. It's learning by doing.
Can you spell it is another thing. And I can't spell oxytocin, but Paul J. Zapp knows that stories help produce oxytocin. So it's a neurochemical response in the brain when people hear a story. And you all know that oxytocin is a bonding chemical that develops trust. You want people to have that when you're presenting to them, and stories are why that happens.
Nancy Duarte is known for her book about effective presentations, Slidology. In 2010, she wrote a prequel called Resonate, where she states stories are the most powerful delivery tool for information, more powerful and enduring than any other art form.
Deb Small from the Wharton School of Business, University of Pennsylvania, did a study as well, indicating how powerful stories are. And what she found is when stories are told, an emotional response is generated within the audience. And she used this to judge how people would donate to a charity. Those people who saw stats only donated much less. Those who saw stats and stories donated much more because the emotions were triggered.
Richard Branson highlights how storytelling has helped him succeed with this quote: sharing a story is one of the best ways we have of coming up with new ideas. Eh, what, Governor?
And that is Sir Richard Branson to you. So storytelling is powerful, but who can tell those stories?
You! However, there's an asterisk. Some terms and conditions apply. We'll get to those later.
My goodness. Now, before those all-important terms and condition, we have to look at a definition, working definition for stories at work.
Yeah, anecdotes that are short, interesting stories about a real incident or a real person work really well. Anecdotes at work should have the following 3 attributes.
If you want to score points with your audience, go for brevity. The shorter, the better. Now, you can go probably 60 to 90 seconds max, but if you go even less than that, that is a winner.
Some would say that brevity is the soul of wit, but I say brevity, wit's soul.
As you can see, you can always cut out some extra words. Please remember that time is a resource that people have that is not renewable, not replaceable. So you want to express that respect for everybody's time, whether outside of work, but especially in a professional setting. Be aware of that. And if you tell a story, don't go a rambling thing about your disastrous camping trip last summer. Get to that story with brevity. And
people who use humor at work are recognized as leaders. This is why combining the power of storytelling with the power of humor makes you stand out, but you don't want to stand out in a bad way. Know your audience, strive not to offend them. An anecdote in a professional story is not a comedy routine. If you tell an engaging story and get 1 or 2 laughs, you win. Even if you attempt some humor and get no laughs at all, you're still seen as a leader.
And the third attribute is clarity. If your story, your anecdote is funny and now it's finished, but people don't know why you told that story, you lose. So to gain that clarity, make sure that fun anecdote is connected to the point. Make sure that people understand why you're telling that story.
All right, so now you know why you should use stories and what kind of stories to use in a professional setting. But where and when can you use them?
The simple answer is anytime and anywhere, where it's appropriate, when it's appropriate. So you want to just say, hey, let's do it right now, and it works, fine. If it doesn't, fine. So because of this, don't miss on the opportunities to share your powerful, humorous anecdotes that have a point. And it can be in your presentation, in the middle of somebody else's presentation where they're asking for you to share your stories. It can be at a meeting at work, maybe a Zoom meeting where you're just about to doze off. You come in with that humorous anecdote and make it more effective. And especially if there's ever a work party, social engagement with your coworkers, tell your humorous anecdotes then. It'll be powerful and memorable. But one thing you don't want to do is tell a bathroom story.
Oh, Brendan. How little you know about the effect of a good bathroom story. When I was just a broth of a lad, we're going back to 1981, okay, 1984. I was working at Arthur Young and Company. I was a brilliant young lad doing computer support. One of our clients was Apple, Claris, and they had a new program that was called Smart Form Designer. This was this revolutionary idea where you could use a computer form, fill it out, and it would save the information in a database. 1984. So my boss hands it to me. He says, hey, we've got that new inventory plan. Why don't you try to use this program to do it? I sat down, I drew a field, I programmed the logic behind it, drew a field, programmed the logic. Half an hour into it, I had a pounding headache. I talked to my boss. I said, I'm trying to use this, but man, my head hurts. He says, oh, me too. And we realized that the issue was it's making me do context switching. I'm drawing and programming. drawing and programming, and going back and forth is making my brain go wild. So we went to Claris, since they were a client, and we talked to the product manager. We explained this situation we found using the software. She laughed at us. No, we've been beta testing this for months. We've gotten no feedback like this. What's wrong with us? Well, my boss excused himself to go to the men's room. And in the men's room happened to be Bill Campbell, the CEO of Claris. And they started talking, as guys do, at the urinal. And he said, "You've got this great new product, but it gives me a headache to use it." Really? Really, is that right? Well, long story short, the project was delayed 6 months. The new UI was much better, and the product manager was reassigned. So this is how work really gets done in Silicon Valley.
Power of stories right there.
Now comes the hard part. The how-to. Are you ready for the next difficult step?
I don't hear anybody yet.
Yes.
Yes. Go. Of course you are, because the first step is to join Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Yes, there. You made that first step, but
Then things get tricky. Because you also need to do Toastmasters. One of the big reasons leading to Toastmasters being around for, 100 years, is the regular repetition of skills everyone needs, especially if they expect to succeed outside of Toastmasters. This helps you to build and maintain the fundamental communication techniques required of you to be an effective storyteller at work.
and in those skills, the first of is confidence. That Toastmasters, because of the iteration, week by week, you get up, you do something. Maybe it's the timer's report, maybe it's a 5 to 7 minute speech, but you're always standing up and talking. Most people outside of Toastmasters will tell you it is difficult to talk on your feet. Something freezes up when you do that. Toastmasters, you're standing up every meeting. And because of that, you're able to practice and develop that sense of confidence of just standing up and speaking. And when your audience senses that confidence, they become more comfortable, just like you. It's the first big benefit of telling stories.
But you could get up and confidently give a story that goes absolutely nowhere. So you must have an organized and clear beginning. You got a middle, you got an end. Hitting tangents along the way will only confuse the listener and waste your precious time. So make sure characters and conflict are clear while leaving no doubt when it comes to the resolution. What was the point of your story?
And in practicing your speeches, you get a sense of what works with an audience. And being able to get that sense and practicing again and again and again, you develop effectiveness.
And you have to wonder, did the story have good ideas, logic, and original thought?
And after that, you have to look at your interest in your audience and making sure that they get something out of it. And you can see that when you're talking to people. You can even see it if you see some faces on Zoom. But getting that sense of the audience being interested. Did they sleep? Were they interactive? Did they laugh at the appropriate part? That's very important.
And how people see you as you speak has an impact on how they receive your message. Is your appearance appropriate? Do your facial expressions reinforce the words you use? Do gestures help you or hinder you?
Speaking language, man.
Yep.
Gotcha. So leveraging language to tell your story, getting more comfortable with language. Did the word you chose connect with the point of your story? Was it the best word? You want to make sure you don't use the wrong word. Was it grammatically correct? So it didn't get people thinking, no, wait a second, that adverb was in the wrong place. Were there ahs and ums? And did the language work in that way? Very important as you hone your anecdotes.
Do you vary your rate and pitch enough to avoid a monotone delivery? Do your vocal tones help to communicate the meaning of your words? Can they hear you? In the back, David Dye.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Nice, very powerful. Cool. And now we talk about that dreaded moment of each and every meeting when you are called to stand up without a plan. Impromptu speaking, also known as table topics.
We invite you to challenge yourself when you have the opportunity to respond to a table topic by remembering these enhanced enhanced table topic techniques.
Have you ever, I want to see anybody out there actually done this. You got up, ready to do your table topics. You get the topic from the topic master and you go, you know, Mr. Topic Master, that's a great topic. But I really like the topic you gave to our first respondent of the day. The horror, the horror. First thing you gotta do with this homework assignment of doing table topics for your benefit is to accept those challenging table topics so that you might fail, not that you might succeed, that you might fail in the room, in that safe space that is a Toastmasters room, so that after failure there, you will succeed outside of the club.
Respond with an anecdote that connects with the table topic and is shared in such a way that the audience is not only entertained, but also enlightened by the message of the story. And all of this in 90 seconds or less.
Now, this is not an easy assignment. So what we want you to do for your homework assignment is prepare your anecdotes in advance. And we're looking for 60 to 90-second anecdotes that you maybe share with a friend, then you write it down. What happens after you write, Dennis? Rewrite. You say rewrite.
Well, as I often say, the only difference between my writing and anyone else's is 7 rewrites.
So that's what we want you to think about, is getting at least 5 and preferably a lot more anecdotes that are prepared well in advance, and you can practice them in Toastmasters when you get a table topic that fits a particular anecdote. Get at least 5, but I'm hoping you'll end up with 20, 30, 50 or more anecdotes that you can plug in at the right time. Want to hit a tangent here that's not on the script? Dennis may be allowed to do so. Okay, never mind. All right, so anybody remember what Robin Williams? Okay, all right. So Robin Williams had a team of writers to help him write his little comic bits that were 3 to 5 minutes in general. Everything was prepared, honed. They would go to, comedy clubs, open improv night, and Robin Williams would get up there and try new material and see which laughs were generated. And they realized, no, that didn't work. Oh, but this works. Oh, this really works. And they developed these great skits. So when Robin Williams got up on stage, did he just go, okay, bit 1, bit 2, bit 3? No, he reached into the audience and said, oh, I see you have a blue shirt on. Well, that reminds me of the blue car I had when I was a freshman at Berkeley. And then he's able to take off on that pre-written 3 to 5 minute routine that is connected to his blue car from his college days. So the connection was what he did impromptu, but the humor stories were refined and ready to go. In that same way, we're asking you to come up with at least 5 themes of potential anecdotes that you can have in your back pocket to try out in Toastmasters. And when nobody laughs or people start snoring, you say, maybe that's not a good one. You might get rid of it or rewrite it, but you get that chance to test it out so that when you're able to tell stories at work, you have a well-honed anecdote that's ready to plug in just so long as you connect it to that particular opportunity at work.
So think of those ideas that I prompted you at the beginning of the presentation to think through. Or you can come up with new ones. And when you think about this issue, this opportunity that you have at work, there's probably some sort of saying that you could put alongside of it. Some way to, in one sentence, sum up the point of what you're trying to do. And if you have that summation sentence, you can think of an anecdote that's going to lead you there. I'll give you an example. When I was in college, I was put in, everything happened before I was 30. You know? So this would have been 1981. I was in charge of the blood drive, and I had this great idea because when you're 21 years old, you have nothing but great ideas, according to yourself. And the idea was that the blood drive would center around the big drip. The big drip. Now, those of you who are old enough may remember the Fig Newton commercial with the big fig. Ooey gooey, rich and chewy inside, you know, the whole thing. And I thought, well, we'll do the same thing. We'll have a big blood drip costume and do the dance. And then we could have these great posters all over, be a big drip, do the big drip, you know, whole thing. It was such a fantastic idea. And I got an artist to volunteer to help. I told her my great idea. She said, well, I can try. Turns out she was more of an abstract artist who did some beautiful design work, etc. But no, I needed a cartoon big drip. Can you draw me a big drip, please? Just draw, and it's a drip, and he's big, and red. And she tried, she really tried. But what she came out with was the most frightening image I've ever seen. There's no way anybody would give blood looking at this creature. And so I demanded that she do a better job of drawing the drip. And they got worse and more frightening and more terrible. I never got the posters. And that's when somebody whispered into my ear, people help support what they help to create. If I had just let her do it the way she wanted to do it, we would have had posters all over the place. But because I insisted it had to be my vision, there was no vision at all. So that's a story I can tell anytime I'm being an idiot. She comes up often.
Indeed, it does. So what we would like to do now is take some time to get you to share your big drip anecdotes or something similar, a story that might work. But we're also going to ask you to think of the 5 potential anecdotes, the themes for them. I'm not going to ask you to tell that whole thing. And then we're going to ask you to just tell one of them. And we won't have time for everybody, but we'll be picking on some volunteers. I'm looking for people who are breathing right now. Everybody's holding their breath. Okay, so I got Tasha, and then we'll do Bet. So, and then we'll do over here. All right, and then we'll get some people online. Let's start with Tasha Key, and then we'll do Bet. And then we'll probably do somebody live, and then we'll get to you. Come on, Tasha Key. Come on down. You talk to that funny man in the hat.
Funny man in that.
Now, I'll let everyone, oh, your timing. Very good. So we are going to keep the time right around 90 seconds and no more.
Okay.
Go.
Oh, do you want me to do some timer for this? Okay. Well, it's 1:15 is what I'm.
So I'm gonna tell my story.
Yes, go.
Oh, okay, go.
I was a new VPR at my Toastmasters club at work. And I wanted to promote the Tall Tales contest. I was gonna do it a great job, all by myself, and get all our employees into this contest. So I went online and I Googled, liar, liar, pants on fire, found the perfect image. I put it on the posters, I posted it everywhere, in the lobby, at the commissary. I get a call. you need to come to the HR vice president office now. It's like, what? We see this pants on fire, and the fire is not in the in the current area. What do you have against men? Huh? Oh. You know, it's very important to get feedback.
No, you don't want to shake it. Oh. Watch your step. Here we got a little live chord. Next up, we got Beck coming on down.
So it's so thirsty and really excited about drinking a fresh lemon water. So I got a beautiful wine glass that I put on my counter, then I took a lemon and I cut it in half. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to take the time to get the bottom half of the lemon squeezer out from the cabinet. I'm just gonna use the top of it, put it right on top of that glass, squish the lemon down, and as I pushed hard, time slowed down. And I watched my hand fall into the glass, breaking, shattering the glass, cutting my finger right here. And I was like, wow, that was stupid. Blood was spurting everywhere. My husband, Steve, saved my life, he wrapped it up. My point is, all tools can be used safely and unsafely. And if we use mindfulness as we approach any tool, even the most silly little lemon squeezing system, we can be a lot happier. And as we approach other tools like AI or social media, we can use them with respect and mindfully. Back to
So, we're gonna get you, I'm just gonna check with some people online. Jeff, is there anybody online? Maybe they put some of their 5 themes into the chat that you want to share, or maybe we can get a story from somebody online.
I have not received anything from the great beyond, sir.
Okay, and I'm sensing a presence out there. For those of you online, just put some of your topics, potential topics, one little sentence into the chat, and we'll get Jeff to share those later. Right now, we have a gentleman right here.
I also want to point out that Beth's story did include blood loss. And this was always appreciated.
Yeah, but what did she call this story? She didn't call it the big drip. All right, thank you so much.
So this is a real story. It happened just about a week ago, and you can still see my battle scars from that. So my company sent me to Dominican Republic because I won the big contract with the customer. I was there, it was really hot, and one of the things I did during that session was actually chief people officer for my company invited me for a social with all the big kahunas in the company, and these are the CEO, the CIO, the CTO, and everybody, right? So I went in a little early, and then I only saw like 3 people there, and they're all, for some reason, all dressed in white. I'm dressed in black, like I'm dressed right now. I was thinking, maybe I didn't get the memo. So they're not looking, I look at my cell phone, it says, oh, please dress in white. So I decided I need to go out back to my room and put on my white clothes. One thing I did not count on was this resort. They hired an army of people whose job is to clean the glasses. And as I was rushing out of the door, I bumped my head on the door and hit my knees. And I made a big noise. Thank goodness, no blood involved. And I did not faint. I feel super impressed because these are all the chief top officers. We're going to start talking about this incident for years to come, but that was okay. So I gathered myself up. I said, I'm okay. Went back to my room, changed, and go back in. The only difference between that and there are 2 things, right? One is I'm now in white. And then the second one is I have a big bump on my forehead. And I just noticed people, when I talk to them, they keep on flipping their eyes to my big bump. Which was okay. I learned my lesson. I actually share these lessons with my kids. And the lesson for you, the reason I'm sharing with you is clarity is good, so use it wisely.
Lou, thank you, Lou. Get a big hand for Lou. We have time for a few more. You got somebody or?
No, I was going to say, I appreciate your use of black clothing because it's so slimming.
Yeah. Fantastic. Come on down. All right.
All right, so I'm gonna tell you, I'm a school teacher, I have to use a lot of stories, so I'm gonna give you a choice, bicycles or guitars.
Guitar.
Thank you. This is about, I really can't do it very well. What I have isn't very good. So my uncle bought me a $6 guitar at a garage sale. And he says, well, you know what, I'm not gonna give it to you during your birthday or anything because it's sort of messed up. So I got it, it needed a bridge, it needed a nut. I go to the music store, I like to play with tools and stuff. So I go to the music store, they said, oh, you should just buy a guitar. I said, I want to repair this. So they showed me the parts, I got it, glued everything together, I got a set of strings, a couple guitar picks, and I started to strum. I took a guitar class, and I learned a few progressions. And then I took another guitar class the following year, because I was in a band, you know, when you can't play your instruments. Anyway, so I took this guitar class, and, you know, we learned some picking and everything like that. And then, you know, one day I'm like, you know, my fingers always hurt playing this guitar, but it had really terrible action on it. And so I went to the guitar teacher after class who says, you know, I don't know, I have a job, I could probably buy a better guitar. You think this guitar is gonna be okay? And he's like, let me see that. Okay, how about jazz? You know, what are you trying to play? I'm in a punk rock band. This is awesome. So you don't need to have a $500 guitar to be honest.
Ah, nice. This one more victim. Probably one of.
Wait a minute.
Okay.
If you sit in the front, you do get wet, so that's why we're bringing.
Yeah, any blood on me? I have a story that's about 5 hours old, actually, and it was this morning. So my daughter's 15 months old, and she had her 15-month vaccines yesterday. Anybody here ever been through that moment? Would you call it fun? Probably not. Not fun for her, not fun for us. But she's also going through a little bit of separation anxiety. So this is the first time Daddy's been out of the house for probably what, 15 months? And so it's a big goodbye, and it's a sad one. And she's not feeling very well. So at breakfast, she's having, what do you give a 15-month-old when they're not feeling well? Bananas, of course, her favorite food. And she's feeding it to her teddy bear, and it is such a beautiful moment. Now let's pause there for a second. My wife loves to tease me because my car looks like a doomsday prepper went to the Armani outlet. All the suits, all the ties, every pocket square. Not today. Not today, you see, I had just taken my car in for a detail, and I had to replace all those things. And of course, when would that happen? Today. So one last hug, one last snuggle, and then I get in the car. 20 minutes later, is that banana that I smell? Oh, pure banana, folks. Unfortunately, it wasn't that far away, so I was able to turn around and drive home. The moral of the story, always keep a spare suit, but don't ever forget to say goodbye.
Look at how many life lessons we just got in the space of 10 minutes. This is the power of story, that you can use at home, you can use it at church, you can use it at work. I think we still have a few minutes here, no?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes, but I would like to just check if anybody on Zoom, maybe. Jeff, anybody on Zoom put anything in the chat?
On Zoom, we have the serendipitous comments from Donna Lou talking about the subject of changing lives of kids. And from Joan Linney, a little knowledge is dangerous or can be dangerous. That's appropriate to this discussion, I believe.
You got it. So eventually we'll get those people out here and they'll share their stories. I think, Dennis, you wanted to do one more?
No, I was going to see if someone wanted to just share the theme. A theme, something.
Yes,
that-
those were the themes. Changing lives of kids and a little knowledge can be dangerous.
Okay, so a little knowledge can be dangerous. Can anybody think of an anecdote that would go with that? A little knowledge can be dangerous.
Let's use AI as their logo for our company.
I couldn't hear. Did you hear?
No, what?
Let's use AI to make the logo for our company and not check it at all.
Yeah, that's right. Ooh. Very prescient.
Yeah, so a lot of times, just the theme that you're trying to come up with is going to spark a story, and whatever sparks, go with it. Because it's something that registered in your mind, it's very likely going to register in the minds of your listeners. All right, that's good.
Thank you so much for everybody's participation. Would love to hear more. And now it's time for us to summarize.
Yes. Strong inferred stories are a powerful form of communication at work and at home and in church and everywhere.
Gotcha. And because of your involvement with Toastmasters, you are ready to tell stories that will.
Because of the high cost of time, you should use brief, humorous anecdotes at work.
And they also have to have a little bit of clarity in addition to that. Use them when and where is appropriate, not including Dennis's bathrooms.
Yes, now leverage your club table topics time to practice these anecdotes and continue to refine them. Don't just get up there and blather, use it.
And now we have about 7 minutes. We're scheduled to end at 1:35 to answer some questions or get some comments from the audience. Yeah.
When coming up with anecdotes, do you come up with the theme or the moral first, or do you think of the anecdote and try to add some larger overarching lesson from it?
Dennis, don't respond. I'm gonna take this one. Stories are fungible. So get a great story that has a little bit of humor. Once again, we're not saying it's not a comedy routine, 1 or 2 laughs. And one anecdote could probably be connected to different themes or different issues and give you different points. So having those powerful stories gives you a tool that we can use in many ways.
And what's happening here, Brendan is of the opinion that if you're in a table topics contest, you should have some pre-baked table topics ready. And then when the question comes up, and it's always a softball, isn't it? What leadership traits would you like to exemplify to your children? Well, you can pull one of your pre-baked stories. I've never won a table topics contest. Well, I haven't gotten to the big finals yet. But I prefer to hear the question and then talk about what it sparks. And so it's actually, in answer to your question, you can do it stupid Brendan's way.
Who's a champion in table topics?
Who is a champion of table topics? Or you can do it the more elegant, the more refined, the more sportsmanlike way.
Okay, he's running out of time, but let me just say this, that having a quiver gives you options. So not just one story, maybe over time in Toastmasters, you can refine and develop, write and rewrite your anecdotes. And then you say, oh, anecdote number 9 fits here, just no problem.
And I will say that the big drip story, for example, I've been telling that for 40 years. And it still never gets better.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lou?
So when we think about stories, they usually follow a story arc, right? So I think anecdote, I'm not sure if they require arc, meaning we have a context and then something happens that usually are not pleasant or negative, and then you kind of come up with a solution along the way and then you have a payoff at the end, right? So do you recommend all the anecdotes and all the stories you tell to follow the same arc?
What do stories need, Mr. Dawson? What are the basic ingredients?
Basic ingredients. 3 phases, according to Kendra Hall, who wrote the book Stories That Stick. And she is specifically talking about stories that you use in business. The first part of your story is to describe what's normal. This is the way it was. Then there's an inciting event. Something changes. And then you describe what happened after that inciting event. That's a simple enough formula that you can come up with a good business anecdote. Rather quickly with that. So how it was, what happened, and how it is today.
Fantastic. Yeah.
When you're thinking about this 5 or 7 anecdote, Is it better to have your own story or is it a story you read elsewhere?
Well, I like to tell stories about my big brothers where they get embarrassed, but I have more embarrassing stories that are probably a little more funny. So you choose which story works. It could be about a random person that you met once, could be about you, your family, or whatever. So choose the ones that work and then practice them in your club and see if they work for the audience as well.
Now, when my wife used to cook a pot roast, she would always cut the very end of it off. And I said, why do you cut it off? And she said, well, because my mother taught me to do that. So I asked her mother, why do you cut the end of the roast off? She said, well, my mother taught me. So I go ask grandma, why do you cut the end of the roast off? She said, well, my pan's only this wide. So don't just blindly follow what people have done in the past. Great story. It's a better story that I stole from God knows where. It's an old story, but it's better if I tell it about my wife.
Fantastic. I think I have time for one more question. Yeah, I'm gonna go over to here and then let's maybe split the question here.
My question is about how do you start a story when you're having a conversation? Because sometimes I have a hard time jumping into story mode when I'm talking to someone. It's easy just to make a speech about it, but.
Yeah. So my favorite line, and it's politically incorrect, the world of Commander McBride. I can't recommend it. You see him on YouTube, terribly, non-progressive. But he always goes, that reminds me of the time I was in Deeper Starfish and yeah. And you could just simply say that, oh, that reminds me of the time. And you'll see with your audience's eyes if they're going, you have 10 seconds and I better end quick. And but if you're engaging and there's some humor, they will go for it. And, finding that connection is the art that you get to practice again and again. And it's difficult in Toastmasters because we have a baked in address. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and honored guests. That's your starting line. That's your connector. But how you do it more one-on-one or something like that, you say, oh, that reminds me. Boom. Any others?
Or you can go.
Okay.
And go.
All right, we're gonna get to Tasha Key, then we gotta end it out. What do you got, Tasha?
Well, I just noticed that, some of the stories, a lot of stories were funny. And I just wanted to comment on the use of humor. Is it mandatory if it's not, or like?
Again, humor is power. Humor is power. Again, I go back to the Wall Street Journal article I read in 2018 that said people who use humor, even if people don't laugh, are looked on as leaders. Now, if you offend, then that all bets are off. But if you tell a bad pun that people groan, you win, right, Dennis?
Well, absolutely. If you think of it as if you're sitting with people in a restaurant, and if your story ends, and that's how the puppy died. Now, who wants to get an awesome blossom? Not quite the same thing. So yeah, humor usually works much better in business and pleasure.
With that, we need to end out. I will be staying with Dennis a little bit afterwards. Anybody want to come up and talk? Anybody on Zoom has any questions? But thank you all for your time today. Good luck with your project. What's up?
Go. I'm gonna get in front of my. All right.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to see if there's anybody who has any questions online.
I have one, which is
Okay.
what do you do if you can't cut the story down to 90 seconds without losing too much detail?
Well, again, I think stories can have those essential ingredients, even if they're very brief. The classic thing is Hemingway's 6-word story.
Yes.
Baby shoes for sale, never worn. That's a story right there. So as you tell your story again and again, write and rewrite, you will find ways to narrow it down to the bare essentials. And, some stories can be told in 30 seconds, 15 seconds, but I think 1 minute is an ideal length for an interesting story. But it has to be entertaining and please add humor.
And also, what do you do with people who say, "Oh, I've heard this story already"?
Oh, now that's an interesting one. My thing is, you have some of those lines and say, be prepared for it by simply saying, oh, yeah, but this time it's better, and they do it. Now, if it's somebody who, it's the same story, you can say, oh, thanks for reminding me. I got another one, because you have at least 5 based on our challenge for this course. So that's how you would do that. But yeah, think of some of those fun lines just to bring in and stuff like that. But if they say, oh, it's one-on-one and they've heard the story before, you do that. Quick tip though, if the story is good, you've refined it in Toastmasters over time, it's not gonna matter that they've heard it before. They're gonna want to hear it again, most likely. And if you're one-on-one and they just say, I've heard it before, you say, okay, well, that reminds me of another story when I told somebody's story twice. So think of that and that fungibility.
Yeah, the best response I've heard is that, oh, well, this is the audience participation part.
Oh my God. So yeah, no, it's fun, right? Woo. Jeff, thank you so much for helping the people online. Everybody online, thank you so much for attending. And again, in the handout, Dennis and I have our email addresses. You can send us questions or comments, and we appreciate it, of course.
Yep, fun times, cool stuff.
Thanks, man. See ya.
First, I'm here. You can see this, one divided by half. Oh. Second time, I saw, I swear, I do. Part of work, and I even. It's a long walk. Walk this straight. And I wasn't like advocating for my own needs. So now, before. Yeah, and so it's